7.1 Some basic concepts. 7.1.1 Intonation. System intonation refers to the way the voice goes up and down in pitch when people are speaking. It is fundamental part of the way we express our thoughts and it enables us to understand thoughts of others as well as helping to determine meaning. Intonation gives us clues about the speaker's attitude or how he feels about what he is saying. For instance, we can get a good idea as to whether someone is interested, pause, being kind, being honest, or lying. 7.1.2 Pitch can be understood as the quality of a sound that is governed by rather or vibration production. In short, pitch refers to the degree of highness or lowness of a tone. Next, Vũ Thị Minh Trang.
Okay, so now I will talk about the 7.1.3 tones. Tones is a certain pattern of pitch movement. By means of tones, the speaker signals whether what he or she say is a proclamation, an agreement, and disagreement, a question, a hesitation, or indicators of completions and continuations of turn talking in speech. So now we move on to the 7.1.4 tonic syllable. Tonic syllables is the most stressed syllables where the tones fall. This syllable is more prominent than the other. This syllable is more prominent than the other and will tend to be longer in durations and louder than the other stressed syllable in the utterance. The tonic syllable is normally the primary stressed syllables of the last contents word in an intonation phrase. For example, I am a student. I will contact and meet him tomorrow. Now we move on to the 7.1.5 intonation phrase. Tone units, intonation units are the grouped. Intonation phrase is a stress of discord which contains a tonic syllable. An utterance can be spoken as one as several tones units. An utterance can be spoken as one of several tones units depending on the tempo of speech and the speaker's purpose of communications. The faster a person speaks, the longer and fewer the tone unit. The slower the speech, the shorter and more numerous the tone unit. For example, I am going to Hanoi for a meeting Saturday. I am going to Hanoi to meetings next Saturday. Obviously, the utterance I'm going to Hanoi for a meeting next Saturday can be said with one pause, one unit is in two pause, two tones, as in unit. At the syntactic levels, a noun phrase, a verb phrase, and a vital phrase, a preposition phrase, a clause, or even a short simple sentence can be turned unit. For example, if your team does your job well, the manager will speak kindly about your group. If your team does its job well, the managers will speak kindly about your groups, and it's a three-tone unit. In short, how many the tone units iterates has disappointed the speaker speaking rates and whether the praise by the words of which the pause makes sense or not. Thank you.
The first, I will talk about functions of intonation. Intonation has four major functions, namely attitudinal function, accentual function, grammatical function, and discourse function.
He is married. Let's say you're at a party with a friend and you're talking about someone else. You point and you say, he is married. But it's loud, your friend has not quite heard you. She says, he's not married? And you say, no, he is married, stressing the word is. So the first time you said it, he is married. He is married. The word married got the stress. But the second time, he is married. You're bringing out the word is because there was confusion or isn't. So you're going to stress the word where the confusion was. He is married, changing the stress of the sentence. Let's say your friend did understand he is married, but she thought you were pointing at someone else. So she points and says, he's married? And you say, no, he's married. He, and you point at the correct person.
The first, attitudinal function. Attitudinal function expresses the speaker's attitudinal and emotion to the topic. The second, grammatical function. Grammatical function identify grammatical structures in speech. The third, accentual function. Accentual function distinguishes between old and new information. Finally, discourse function. Discourse function signals the way sequencer of utterance are conjugate and or coherent in a spoken discourse.
Functions of accentual intonation too. Similarly, the purpose of emphasis. The tonic stress can be placed in other positions as well. Not only the final lexical word, it can be some word before the final lexical one. For example, the movie was very boring. So boring is an adjective. It is a final one. But for contrastive purpose, for emphasizing, you can have the emphasis, you can have the tone or accent on the word before the final lexical word. Like, the movie was very boring. You shouldn't talk so loudly. You shouldn't talk so loudly. The third function of accentual intonation is to clarify the ambiguities. In written version, of course, it is very difficult to understand this, but while using intonation, you can clarify ambiguous statements. For example, I have plans to leave. So in written form, you use I have plans to leave. But this sentence can have two different meanings. If you say, I have plans to leave, that is, I am planning to leave, I am going out. But when you say, I have plans to leave, it means that I have a number of plans which I don't want to use. Here leave means you are not going to use them anymore. You have plans like say diagrams, drawings, which you don't want to use anymore. So you see the same sentence having intonation on two different words have two different meaning. The third function is grammatical function. The listener is better able to recognize the grammar and syntactic structure of what is being said by using the information contained in the intonation. So intonation can signal grammatical and syntactic structure. For example, such things happen like the placement of boundaries, tone boundaries, between phrases, clauses and sentences. So where you find the tone boundaries, you can normally find the phrases, clauses or grammatical boundaries as well. The difference between questions and statements. For question we use particular type of intonation, and for statements we use particular type of intonation as well. So from intonation you can understand whether it is a question or it is a statement. The discourse function of intonation. Intonation can signal to the listener what is to be taken as new information and what is already given. It can indicate when the speaker is indicating some sort of contrast or link with material in another tone unit. In conversation, it can convey to the listener what kind of response is being expected from him.
Intonation pattern. Intonation in English is a way up and down pulse when speaking, when communicating, making your speaking skill more fluent, attractive, and natural. Raise your voice at the end of yes no question. Raise your voice at the end of the question tongue. Raise intonation, raising tone. Job description. Start sentences with a low tone and raise higher than the intro tone in the last syllables of sentence, phrase or group of words. Raise intonation generally indicate non-finality. Raise the voice of the last words of the sentences. There's no question. Structure of the interrogative sentence. Auxiliary verbs as verb. Raise for intonations. Raise voice in some words and lower voice in the some words in a sentences. Listing sentences. Declarative sentences are usually list many similar objects separated by commas or and. Alternative questions. Questions that force the listener to choose from among the items listened, and these often are separated by the words or.
And I will talk about international pattern. And the first, phone right international. Phone right international convey hesitation, uncertainty, reluctation, or reservation on the part of speaker. The tone fall and then rise in the circumstance and rise of phone right intonation. Right or full right intonation is also common in the following case, and the summary in this chapter. Intonation, the use of pitch variation in this course has been discussed in detail with specific example. We have seen that pitch is the auditory impression created by variation in the rate of vibration of the vocal phone. Intonation is the use of pitch contour over stretches of speech, which often consist of more than one word. Perhaps the most important consequence of what has been described in this chapter is that learners of English have been made very clearly aware the problem that they will meet in listening to colloquial connected speech.